In the haunted town of Salem, Massachusetts, stood an old abandoned school, St. William's High. It had been closed for years after a tragic incident, and no one dared to go near it, especially at night. But three adventurous high school friends, Jake, Ryan, and Ethan, decided to test their courage by sneaking into the school at midnight. Rumors of a girl named Ariana who died in the science lab circulated around town, and many claimed her spirit still haunted the building. The boys jumped over the back wall at 11:45 p.m., flashlight in hand, and entered the dark corridors of the eerie school. As they moved deeper, they passed by faded portraits and one particular photo where a girl's face was mysteriously missing. A chill ran through them as they made their way to the science lab, the very place where Ariana had reportedly died. Inside the lab, the flashlight began to flicker even though its batteries were new. A loud crash startled them. A skeleton model had fallen, but when Ethan picked it up, it seemed harmless. Until Ryan spotted a ghostly figure of a girl in a white uniform standing in the corner who vanished when the light hit her. Panic set in. They rushed to the main door only to find it locked. A whisper behind them sent shivers down their spines. "What are you doing here?" But no one was there. The library door creaked open on its own, beckoning them inside. There they found a dusty diary with eerie handwriting. "I will return for everyone who forgot me. Ariana." As they read, a scream echoed through the air and books began flying off the shelves. The diary flipped itself to a page that said, 12:30 a.m. science lab time will repeat. At exactly 12:30, they returned to the lab only to find it restored to how it looked in 2005, as if time had reversed. Then she appeared, Ariana. Tears ran down her ghostly face as she asked why no one had saved her. Her sorrow turned rage, her eyes glowing red, and with a gesture, flames erupted around them. "You burn, just like I did," she whispered. Trapped with no exit, the boys tried to run, but the door slammed shut, the windows shattered, and Ariana's screams echoed louder. Realizing they were caught in a time loop, Ethan believed the diary held the key. In the library, they discovered a pentagram on the back of the book with the words, "Break the chain, burn the diary." Jake set it on fire, hoping to end the curse. But the school walls began to tremble violently. Ariana's voice cried out in fury, "You can't erase my story! I will live on!" A final earth-shaking explosion ended the nightmare. When the sun rose, smoke rose from the ruins of St. William's High. Authorities found nothing inside except a half-burned diary with one chilling message. Ariana was here, still watching. And Jake, Ryan, and Ethan were never seen again. Locals say that if you pass by the school at 12:30 a.m., you can still hear a girl screaming. And if you listen closely, you might hear her ask, "Why didn't you save me?" It had been 3 months since the disappearance of Jake, Ryan, and Ethan. The story made local news, but after a few weeks, people moved on. Everyone except Lena, Jake's younger sister, who refused to believe her brother was gone forever. She was a quiet, observant high school senior with a love for urban legends and a heart full of determination. Since that night, she'd been researching St. William's High, collecting every clue, every whisper. Her bedroom walls were filled with newspaper clippings, scribbled theories, and eerie photographs. One night, Lena received a strange message from an unknown number. It simply said, "You want answers? Come to the school, midnight. Bring no one." She stared at the screen, her fingers trembling. She could feel something wasn't right, but her brother's face flashed before her eyes. That night, she packed a flashlight, her camera, and the burnt diary page she'd secretly taken from the police evidence file. Just before midnight, she stood outside the school's broken gate, the wind howling like a warning, but she stepped inside. As Lena crept through the silent halls, the air felt heavier than before, almost like the building recognized her. Old wood groaned beneath her feet, and somewhere in the distance, a bell rang once. The same hall where Jake had walked felt colder now. The portraits on the wall were blurred, smudged with long black streaks. Then suddenly, a voice whispered from the shadows, "You shouldn't have come." Lena spun around, nothing but darkness. Her flashlight flickered, then steadied. She took a deep breath and continued toward the science lab. The air grew denser, the silence so thick it seemed to press against her chest. But when she opened the lab door, it wasn't empty. Inside stood a boy, pale, confused, dirty. It was Ethan. Alive, barely. His eyes were wide with terror. "Don't speak," he whispered. "She listens through the walls." Before Lena could react, he grabbed her wrist and dragged her into a hidden space behind a rusted locker. There, inside a narrow passage, Ethan explained what had happened. "We never left," he said. "We were trapped, in time, in her loop. But somehow I escaped. Ryan and Jake. I don't know where they are, or if they're even real anymore." Lena's heart sank. She showed him the diary page, and Ethan's eyes widened. "That symbol," he said, pointing to a faded part on the page. "It's not just a curse. It's a map of the school's understructure." Beneath St. William's, hidden in the foundation, was a secret chamber, a forgotten ritual room built during the town's dark history of occult practices. The two snuck through a crack in the basement wall and found a narrow stone staircase spiraling downward. The air was thick with mold and silence. When they reached the bottom, they entered a room carved with ancient symbols. In the center stood a shrine, and on it, a portrait of Ariana untouched by time, her eyes painted so realistically it felt like they were following every move. Around the shrine, candles lit themselves. A deep voice echoed through the chamber. "You've brought me back." Ethan grabbed Lena's hand, but his body froze mid-movement. His eyes rolled back, and his mouth opened in a silent scream. Ariana's spirit had returned, but she was no longer just a ghost. She had grown stronger, absorbing the trapped souls of the others. The air cracked like thunder. Lena screamed, backing away, but Ariana appeared right in front of her. Pale skin, hollow eyes, her hair floating as if underwater. "You want your brother?" she hissed. "Then take his place." With a shriek, Ariana raised her hand, and suddenly Lena was back in the hallway, but everything looked different. It wasn't nighttime anymore. It was daytime. The school was alive. Students laughed, teachers passed by, and the halls were full of life. She was wearing a uniform, holding a textbook. Confused, she turned to a mirror nearby and gasped. Her reflection wasn't hers anymore. She was seeing Ariana's face. Lena had been pulled into the past, into the final day before the fire. Somehow she was trapped in Ariana's body, reliving her last hours. But as time ticked forward, Lena began to see things through Ariana's eyes. The betrayal, the bullying, the screams, the locked doors, the fire. It wasn't just an accident. It was murder. The teachers had locked her in during a lab fire drill as punishment for exposing their secret rituals. Ariana had died alone, begging to be saved. Now Lena understood. But as the fire began again and smoke filled the room, she made a choice. Using the diary page she had tucked in her pocket, she chanted the symbol backwards, speaking the incantation that had once trapped Ariana. A blinding light exploded. Lena screamed and the world went dark. She woke up outside the school gates, coughing, shaking. It was sunrise. Her clothes were burned, but she was alive. In her hand was the diary, whole again. And next to her, Jake's necklace. Tears ran down her face. She didn't know if she saved him, but she knew she had faced the truth. But as she turned to leave, She saw her own reflection in a broken school window, and for just 1 second, her eyes flashed red.